All right, everyone. Hello, and welcome to Better Ops Together, with some other P's and stuff in there. It's hard for me to even say. So, I have an agenda. You're going to find out what that is as I go through it, but it's up there right now if you're interested. So who am I, first of all? I'm Mark Kraus. I'm a senior systems engineer at LinkedIn, author of the Get PowerShell blog, PowerShell Core project collaborator, Web Commandlets contributor, PowerShell Live coordinator, and Marky Kraus pretty much everywhere. Maybe on Twitter and LinkedIn, but not the Facebook one. So what is pair programming? First of all, there's no magic sauce to this for real. It's kind of like just a way of doing things that doesn't really have a formal framework to it. But the basis of it is that there's two or more people working on the same code at the same time. Generally, there's kind of a driver who tends to be a junior engineer of some kind, or maybe knows less about what you're doing, and a navigator who tends to be kind of a senior engineer or more of an expert on the particular API you're programming against. The driver does the coding. So the driver sits at the keyboard and types the things, and the navigator kind of reviews the code as it's going along, looks through what the coder is doing, what the driver is doing, and kind of guides them through what's the next step, what's the next thing we're doing, make this correction here, etc. So why do pair programming? So there's some good pros and cons to doing it, but to start off, why? It streamlines your review process. So if you have two people dedicated to the same code, that's a lot like somebody coding and reviewing, right? You have one person who codes, another person who's doing the review process. What if you can have that at the same time? So generally, you can have a much faster review process for your code by just having that person there who's already like making sure mistakes are out of it. Some shops, you might have no need for another third person to review it. Some shops still might want somebody to look over what you're doing, that the pair programming session produced. But that third person should have a really easy time now of reviewing that code because it's already been fine-groomed as the code's been written by two people. It helps spread skills and knowledge. This is a big one. This is a key win for a lot of teams that do this. Kind of the point of having a junior engineer drive is so that they could learn the process. Then you can also teach them as you're going along of what's this API that they've never worked with. Maybe tell them some better practices, like let's not nest 14 for loops inside of each other. Maybe we don't put the password in plain text in here. And just kind of help kind of skill up your team as well. The two heads is better than one, obviously. So two people looking at something, this is why we do a review process in the first place, right? It's just we're moving that same effort into the actual coding time. Now we have two people looking at the code, thinking about it, and noticing mistakes. And this works both ways. It's not just the driver, it's not just the navigator pointing out mistakes the driver is making as they're going along. Sometimes the navigator's like, you know, that's a great idea, but I think that we're going to run into problems here. You kind of stop and communicate on that as you're going through and fix that from being a problem that gets maybe missed in review and pushed to prod or something to like that effect. It's a great way to do team building also. So if you're on a team and you guys get along pretty well, you work all right, this will help bond a lot. So I can't speak to this as a psychology professional, but I would say that two people coming together to solve a common goal is a great way to bond. In my experience, at least, and asking around in my informal, friend and peerage. So this is a great way to make your team kind of get more cohesive, work better, understand, and kind of build those connections within your team. At LinkedIn, we have a saying that relationships matter, and this is one way to kind of, in our team, to kind of produce that as well. It also helps improves the confidence of code. So one thing that you might notice if you're in a shop that's not a developer shop, you've worked in kind of a traditional ops and infrastructure environment, you've got a couple of people who have written some scripts maybe. Most of the time they're imperative coders who have been out there on the shell, like restarting computers, setting IP addresses, things like that. And they're not really confident, like they've never really written a function or anything like this. And it could be a little intimidating to say, hey, go write some code and let me review it afterwards. Like that doesn't always work. But in a pair programming, we sit down and say, hey, let's sit down, work on this together. They can kind of get confident with having people see their code and not have to worry so much about the fear of that. So there are some cons to it, though. It does double the person hours dedicated to the code. So if you're on a small team, you obviously have tons of work. Everyone does. You always have more work than you have resources to do it. That's a problem everyone has. Doesn't go away even in large companies. And this means that you have to now take 2 people and put them doing a task at the same time. So if it takes 5 person hours, to work on the task, and you commit 2 people to that, that's now 10 person hours. So that's 5 other person hours that could have gone towards fixing the other dumpster fires that are in your environment. So people often prefer to program alone. I mean, I think in IT, some of us are solitary by nature. We like to be off in our own. And this could be a matter of focus, too. So sometimes you want to get your head down and buried in something and focus on it, put your headphones on, blast your Metallicas, and just focus on the code that you're doing. And it can be really hard to get that focus if you have to sit there and communicate to somebody sitting next to you. So you can kind of lose that zone somewhat. And then there's just the fact that, sometimes we're solitary creatures in IT, and it's kind of uncomfortable. I want to work, but I'm sitting next to this person, and it's not part of my good feelings. So this may not work well in a disjoint or incohesive team either. So if you already have some kind of issues in your team and you're trying to work through them, enforcing pair programming is probably not going to make it better, especially if you've got this kind of driver and navigator working together, and the navigator is supposed to be more of a senior person, but maybe the driver thinks that they're the senior person, right? And they've been having this conflict, right? So maybe not a good idea to enforce it. Could be maybe recommended, but maybe not something you want to enforce. So why do pair programming in ops, right? Like, we're not coders, we're not developers, are we? I mean, Thomas Rainer says if you're doing code, you're a dev, so I believe that too. So that's part of it. But consider that like maybe you are in a traditional ops organization, and you just want to start doing more automation and kind of expanding it so that you have more people on your team that can do it. So this is a great way to kind of get that into your environment, kind of teach that automation mindset. Maybe you're not going to be a full-on DevOps shop, but maybe you just want to have more things automated and less things reactive, right? And less time like going out and taking tickets and then reacting to them. And maybe we push some scripts out that fix it beforehand, things like that. You can greatly improve that genesis of automation so that you're actually building more of it, especially if you're getting more people to do it than just yourself. If you happen to be the one person on your team who has written anything like script-like at all, then this is your chance to help proselytize automation to your team. Can help introduce that developer mindset to kind of an ops-minded staff. So we have kind of a different way of thinking about things sometimes. That's where some of our contention has always been. And on the dev side of the world, there's some shops where they have literally a shadow that's assigned to every single piece of code. So you have one person who's coding, one person who's shadowing always. And they have dedicated staff for that. And that's a way that they tackle every single project. And that kind of mindset of like having that kind of backup and having that kind of rigor on how you're coding and maintaining quality is something that we can introduce on the ops side and get them thinking about in kind of a developer mindset instead of being so reactive ops focused. And you don't have to be a DevOps shop. So this is not a DevOps concept. This doesn't have anything to do with that. So if you're saying we're not ever going to do CI/CD pipelines, fine. Like you still write some scripts every now and then, right? Or maybe you want to write more. This is something that you can use to do it. Navigators can also improve their teaching skills. So as a kind of like mentor-mentee relationship, you need to improve your skills as a mentor just as much as a mentee needs to improve their skills in the technology that you're trying to teach them. So this is a good opportunity to kind of switch this off sometimes and maybe even let somebody else do the navigating, even though you are the senior guy on this and you understand it, just so you can give them a chance to learn about teaching and understand kind of that methodology. And this is a great way to teach your coworkers PowerShell. So if you're on a team and you're the only PowerShell person and you want to get them writing PowerShell, this is how you do it. Sit down with them, spend the time bonding, solve that problem together, get to that common goal, and show them how awesome PowerShell is at the same time. So how is pair programming done at LinkedIn? Or just in general, right? So in general, you can literally just sit next to each other. It's not formal, right? There's no set process to this. You can just have one workstation, one laptop, sit down next to each other at a cafe, at your desks, in a conference room, anything like that. Screen sharing and telecollaboration, there's so many of these apps out there, like Visual Studio and VS Code Live Share, which we'll show a short demo at the end. In the community, like Slack and Discord, which I think has been proselytized quite a bit here as well, we use Flowbits or Flowbits. I'm not quite sure the exact pronunciation of that, but it's a very informal website where you go and you can edit code together at the same time, kind of as a live collaboration effort. And it'll be very common for somebody to come in and be like, hey, I've got a problem with X. It's like, cool, here's the link to Flowbits, go create a new thing, give me the link, and I'll help you through it. So you can just do that through Slack and Discord, and you don't even have to be in the same company, right? That's still pair programming. But there's kind of something to consider about the virtual and remote pair programming practices. So like, if the navigator is stepping away from the system to like go get a drink or go for a bio break or something like that, you need to let the driver know so that they're not sitting there thinking that they're getting the benefits of somebody reviewing your code at the same time and just continuing the code. So you want to stay focused as a navigator for this. You want to close all your other screens, stop chatting on your other stuff. Just focus directly on the code sharing that they're doing and make sure that you're giving them your undivided attention. And then inform the driver when you're stepping away. So make sure you're telling them, hey, I need to go away for 15 minutes. Maybe keep coding on this and I'll come back and I'll have to review it. Or maybe you go ahead and take a 15-minute break too and we'll pick this back up. But definitely don't just step away and then come back and not let them know. You might miss something, they might code crazy. So how do we do it at LinkedIn? Well, first of all, I want to talk a little bit about the team that we're on. I'm on the IT side of the house, so I'm not running your LinkedIn.com, but we're responsible for the virtual infrastructure and OS platform support for all the apps and services that support our business to keep it running. We're kind of a hybrid on-prem and cloud environment. We have a mix of engineering and operations in our team, and a mix of remote and on-campus staff, and we even have a sister team in India as well. So we're kind of all over the place. We're not completely centralized, and we work on a very wide number of technologies, and we write a lot of PowerShell code to do it. So the most common way we do it is let's grab a conference room and get this knocked out. We have a bunch of these little breakout rooms and conference rooms that are great to go in. They have teleconferencing available in almost all of them. They have whiteboards, all the kinds of things that you need to just quickly come together and collaborate on something, and some easy booking systems to even make that really possible. So that's one of our most common ways, and that's very low tech, right? Let's just get together and sit next to each other and code. Maybe we share on a screen, maybe we're just looking at each other's laptops. We also use technology for it too. So Teams, VS Code Live Share, and other things like BlueJeans, WebEx, whatever. So whatever is available, whatever we're working on, if I happen to be on a Teams chat, sure, just pop open the sharing on that and do that. If I happen to be on a BlueJeans call, maybe I start sharing my screen on that. No real formality to it. Pick whatever's poison makes you happy and use it there. And that's pretty much how we operate on that ourselves. But I want to go over some notes from the field on this. I covered this a little bit, swapping the roles between the driver and the navigator. And you want to basically kind of pick the navigator on the wheelhouse. So if you're going over a specific technology, like you have a VMware expert on your team, but you're the best PowerShell coder, maybe you let the VMware guy navigate while you code and you do the driving. And maybe you swap that around whenever we're doing something more PowerShell that doesn't have to do with VMware for their benefit. In our team, we use separate tickets for working this. So generally, if you're going to do work tracking on this, you'll want to track this in separate tickets. So one ticket for the driver, one ticket for the navigator, and one ticket for anybody else if you have somebody else doing this. And it's just kind of to track the work that's being done, track the hours that are being committed to the work. Your mileage may vary, whatever works for your team. You might have to show management some of the training value in this. The fact that you're wanting to go out and start spending double the man hours on something is not an attractive thing to most managers. So you might have to do a little bit of convincing there. So you can show them that it has training benefit. Show them that this is bandwidth building. We spend this time now. We don't have to fix it down the road. And we get the benefit of people learning new skills. So you might have to do a little bit of negotiating with your management to get that work through. And you can't do it too often. Ops and infra teams don't have that dedicated software engineer shadow pattern that exists on the dev side of the house, right? So you can't just do it every single time. You can't expect that. But you should try to do it as often as possible. So make the time, make a commitment, get management on board, and then make it happen as much as you can, and you'll start seeing benefits from it. And we've had all kind of the same results that I talked about, some of the pros of doing it before. You know, rapid skill acquisition, and it's been great for our team building, and the quality of our code has definitely improved through this practice. So from the field, I can tell you that what I've said are the pros of this are definitely something you will get back if you commit to doing it. So with that, I'll take a quick moment for questions, and then we'll do a demo of VS Code Live Share. Yes?
How receptive was your management towards doing this when you were originally starting?
How receptive was our management to doing this when we originally started? Varies. Some of them were very receptive to it, thinking, yeah, that's a great idea. And some we had to do a little bit more convincing. I think you'll find that kind of same everywhere. It just depends on the manager and their workload too. I mean, they're trying to get results, and they have their own objectives to kind of work through as well. And you have to show them how this helps them reach those. But generally, it's not going to be much pushback if you can at least frame it in that way for them.
Thank you.
Yes?
Did you guys try to pitch this as a career-building activity for anybody that may be on like a help desk or something?
Yeah. So like I said, we have a mix of traditional ops and engineering on our team. So we had people who traditionally worked just projects and then traditionally just did ops work, right? And so we've used this specifically as skilling them up to get them to kind of the engineering and software mindset, very much specifically for that purpose. Anybody else? Yes?
So how do you convince people to join the program if they're happy where they are? For instance, how do you teach that to them?
How do you convince people to join the program if they're happy where they are? That's going to be if you solve that problem, let me know. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. So you can show them. One of the best ways is to have their peers talk to each other. So if you're a senior guy on the team and you're trying to pitch this to junior guys, the junior guys might not be receptive to it because it's all, look, senpai is telling me to do weird stuff again. Great, whatever. But like, if you can get one of them on board, they happen to be hungry and they want to do it, and you can have the junior guy talk to the other junior guys, like do a little brown bag session, and be like, hey, this is what I learned from senpai-kun, and like go out there and get them to talk to each other. That'll be way more effective, I think, than you doing anything, but you can also just show the benefits. Like if they see the code quality, see how fast everyone's learning skills, they'll get jealous and want to be involved, right? So. All right, so we'll come back if we have more time for questions. We'll do the demo now. So I have a randomly selected volunteer that's totally not a plant in the crowd who's going to help me work through some code here. So in VS Code, there is a live share extension. Its icon looks like Is it not? So this is the live share icon. It looks similar to this. You can get it by going to the extensions and searching for live share or Googling for live share and clicking the install link from the site. Any number of ways. This is not completely a live share demo, but I just want to show how kind of the collaboration side of this works. I'm going to go ahead and start a collaboration session here, which is going to create a key, which is automatically copied to your thing. And now I have to go into some privacy mode to send this over to my completely not planted, voluntold. So he's got the link and he's going to be connecting here. It should show up in the participants here. So you have this session panel that kind of shows you what participants are available, what kind of shared is going on, what kind of terminals are shared. And we can see that Rob Blackman has joined my sharing session, and he should be able to see some things. So I'm going to create a new file for him. All right, Rob, since you have never written in PowerShell before, never a single line of it, I'm going to teach you how to write a PowerShell function that's very critical in the world of PowerShell. It's called Hello World.
Teach me senpai.
All right, Kohai. So what you need to do is define a function. You've written a function before. Can you create like the basic function outline for me on that?
Well, I would if I could actually see.
Yeah, I guess I need to save the file first. So, all right, save, save. Can you see it now? Yeah. So you can see that this icon shows where Rob is actually at right now. So, okay. Yeah, so if you could create a basic function. Yeah, so use the snippet. That's awesome. All right. So let's use a function name for that. What do you think is a good function name for that? Let's do instead something a little more like get-hello world, so we can do that verb noun kind of thing. Okay. All right, so we've got the get-hello world. I don't think we need any parameters because we're just going to do that, so you can kind of close that off. But what we should do is we should make this a commandlet binding so that it's more done. So go ahead and like add the commandlet binding underneath function. Yeah. So you still need to have the param section, and you need to put that commandlet binding on top of the param, and that should work for us. And that goes, yeah. Oh.
No, don't do this to me live. This will probably be on live if
So after commandlet binding inside that square bracket, go ahead and put some, what do you call it, round brackets, some parentheses. Yep. And then both of those lines need to go underneath that get hello world line. So go ahead and copy and cut that and paste it in there. Awesome. All right. So good practice is to have some kind of block in this. So we're going to use the process block. So go ahead and create a process block underneath param. All right. And go ahead and, how would we output hello world? What can we use to do that? Right output? Right output? Let's not. So let's instead do write host, yes, and then and then in there, yeah, let's do hello world, and there we go. All right, so this is kind of how it kind of goes, right? This is a very basic example of doing some pair programming, but you see, it's kind of informal. I'm not line feeding them. I'm kind of guiding them to the next step, and then asking them questions, kind of using the Socratic method a little bit for actually doing the training piece on this. So like ask questions, get them to answer, and then commit the code on there. Review it as it's going along. I see right now this fits what we would have as good practices for our code within side. This is a console app, so actually one thing that we did do wrong is that instead of get, this should be write hello world. So let's go ahead and change that. Yeah, good. So this would run on a console, and write host is totally legit for that one, whereas write output would not. So the entire practice then is built around how we train, how we teach, and how we get them involved in the code without doing it for them. So it really is about setting those guideposts for them while you're navigating and letting the driver kind of code to that guidepost. So there's some other features in here that I can kind of show while we're on this, kind of close down some of these. I can go ahead and do the integrated console here, and I can actually share this with Rob, although right now I have a integrated console problem on my own system that's timely. Updates installed literally 2 minutes before my session started. It's fantastic. But you can share the session here, and they can also type on it. You can execute things for them in this and actually do this, and they'd be able to see it. It's not going to make much sense because I'm doing it on my system, and he'll see it on his as the code's actually executing. There's a couple of other features in here that are kind of nice. So if I have multiple files open, let me create one real quick. And I can then, Rob is now looking at the to file, but I can go to here and do Control-Shift-P and do live share focus participants. And it'll send him saying, your focus has been requested here, and he can click it, and then his focus will change over here. And you can see where he's at now. And if I'm on this, I see he's not there. And he can see where I'm at and all that goodness. So I can focus his attention to a specific line. There's some other focus commands in there. So live share just kind of gives you, focus context view, focus help view, focus session. And that'll kind of move them over to see that. There's some cool stuff, such as you can use the live share plugin on both VS Code and Visual Studio, and you can actually share between them. So one person can be on VS Code on their Mac and actually editing live in Visual Studio, full Visual Studio on somebody's Windows machine, and doing some Windows-based coding from their Mac using VS Code. So there's some cool stuff there, and vice versa too, being able to program on some Linux things from your Windows Visual Studio full version into the VS Code on Mac. So that's kind of the gist of how that works. And the kind of goalpost that you set, how you walk through it, kind of how we do it. So right now, I'll go ahead and open it up for questions, let you ask any questions that you have. Yes?
What's your participant limitation on shared session? Can I have like my whole team working on one?
Well, how big is your team?
Let's say I have like 10 people.
Okay, so let's say you have 10 people and you want them to join a live share session on VS Code. We've done this before, at least in the community on like Discord and the like. We tried it out. I haven't seen any problems at that numbers. I'm sure maybe there is a limit. I don't know off the top of my head. What is it, 30? Pretty sure it's 30. 30? Yeah. Yes? Is there a way in live share for the participant to execute in your console? So if he could type in here, maybe we try this one. Does PowerShell come up? They won't be able to do like F8 to actually like execute highlighted code, but they can type into that. So what you could do.
Yeah, I was more referring to that.
Yeah. Yeah, so if this is shared, and which it is right now in here, since I'm using the full one, these are shared. This one is read-only, but I can make it read-write. And when I make it read-write, then they would be able to actually execute something in there. So that's him typing it, not me. Yeah, that's a great one. Let's just close that one. So yeah, they could do it that way, but I have not seen that selection running works. I believe that I originally thought that this was using their remote code processor too, but it looks like it uses your own, so you might see some weirdness if you don't have certain modules installed like that and you're trying to do autocomplete on their computer. It might be showing up right, on yours it might be wrong, so there's some things there that I don't think are quite fleshed out, but could be maybe better. Maybe we can get Tyler to help us make that better. He's not in here, that's great. Yes. What are the networking constraints? So I believe that you can set up some internal servers for this. I haven't read deeply into that. But by default, you need external internet access. So you just need internet egress. For like a client machine, that's usually available. Maybe if you're doing this from a server, that would require you to open up proxy ports or some kind of egress there. But it does allow you to connect. If you're on the same subnet, it will, instead of going out over the internet, it does communicate to say, hey, I'm on this subnet. Hey, I am too. Let's talk together. And they'll talk locally instead of going out over the internet for everything. Exactly. So the statement was that if you have this plugin and you're using it, it makes it great, because if you have your own kind of setup environment, your own key bindings, like maybe you're on Dvorak and they're on QWERTY, like, you know, those kinds of things, this makes it easier so you can stay on your own kind of ecosystem and continue to maintain that while still collaborating. That's a good point. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed that talk. Pair programming is something that I think in ops and infrastructure would definitely bring us value. If we kind of bring over this dev-focused practice into our world, we can definitely get a lot out of it, and I hope that you can take this back to your teams and apply it. So thanks for coming.